What a joy it is to have you together with us today. When some of you heard the title of my talk, you may have wondered, what on earth do the Lion King, the Bulls, and the Phoenix have to do with a conference focused on digital solutions, both current and future, for Africa and the Middle East? For those of you familiar with the well-known author C.S. Lewis, you may even understandably be wondering if this talk might be an exposition of his classic work, The Lion, the Witch, and the Wardrobe. Especially as all of us have been confined in one form or another in the last couple of months, you might be forgiven in thinking that just as the children in that book escapes to a magical land with a powerful yet gentle and good Lion King who conquers evil and saves citizens of the land of Narnia by giving his life as a ransom for many, that today we would be talking about some form of escapism from our reality. And though you would be wrong, I would give you credit for that. You see, I have 3 young daughters. And as I thought through how best to serve you and share some of what we are seeing in Africa, this talk was partly influenced by hours of watching shows and reading all types of literature with them. As such, one of those movies which you might be familiar with is Disney's The Lion King. In that movie, if you remember, there is this final scene of Rafiki, the monkey kingmaker, lifting high the firstborn of the new Lion King, Simba, in a show of victory and the promise of a bright future. What a victorious scene that was. And yet, what some of us do forget is the backdrop of that ultimate moment. You see, this triumphant moment of greatness arose from a fire that totally wiped out the grasslands and destroyed the lives of many animals and plants. In a similar vein, some of us might be familiar with the quote, "Rise from the ashes." The background behind this quote is related to a mythical bird called the phoenix. In ancient Greek folklore, the phoenix is a bird that lives for a really long time, and it cyclically regenerates itself or is born again. After living for about 500 years, it dies in a huge fire, and a new phoenix is then reborn from the ashes of the burnt one. In many ways, 2020 has become a year of death, both literally and metaphorically speaking. Dreams, strategies, goals, plans have died 1,000 deaths right before our very eyes. And rather than some form of escapism, the task ahead of us is to focus on our current situation and the very real opportunities that have been afforded to us in them, and how we can harness them for the good of our regions. This also is our reality in Africa. And yet I have seen how Africans and African companies have historically harnessed and are currently harnessing these disruptions by pivoting their strategy, leveraging hidden strengths, and collaborating in unusual and unexpected ways. So first of all, Africans and African companies are pivoting their strategy. The other day, my 8-year-old daughter decided that she was going to make pancakes for the entire family. As she read the instructions on the side of the box, there was something else that caught our eye. It was the story of how the pancake batter making company pivoted their strategy to create a just add water pancake mix, driven by the crash of the American economy during the Great Depression. This story is not unique to the West. And we are seeing these types of required pivots of strategy and approach in Africa. As by far the largest geographical continent, the African story is one of immense diversity. In addition, Africa has historically faced a diverse range of challenges. Whether these challenges has come in the form of wars, economic downturns, or even epidemics such as Ebola, we as a continent have had to learn how to effectively navigate these challenges, make much needed adjustments, and truly thrive. In a region that still uses quite a bit of cash transactions, for example, we are seeing things like telcos removing fees on certain transactions to discourage people from handling cash. We are seeing the rapid repurposing of mobile health monitoring platforms to detect and trace viruses. We are seeing e-commerce and e-commerce solutions pick up traction in both B2C and B2B, with statistics of total value of e-commerce hitting $29 billion by 2022. And we are also seeing pivots to encourage greater inclusivity. In some rural places, for example, in Liberia and Sierra Leone, there's a return to leveraging the radio and revamping existing curriculum to fit that medium in order to reach poorer regions with no access to computers or the internet. Just as we are seeing across the world, the African continent is pivoting fast that will result in amazing innovation. I am reminded of the true story depicted in the Netflix movie called The Boy Who Harnessed the Wind. On the backdrop of a harsh drought, it is a story of a boy whose dreams of going to conventional school were initially disrupted and dashed as his father could not afford the fees because of failed crops. This sharp boy saw an opportunity in this dark period, and on the back of his father sacrificing his bicycle as a central piece, the young man constructed a crude yet super effective water producing windmill that led to the salvation of the entire village. This was not his original plan, and yet the disruption of his dream required a pivoted strategy that has led to immense benefits for the greater ecosystem. So not only have we seen and continue to see companies and individuals pivot their strategies in the face of this massive disruption of 2020. But secondly, one of the opportunities afforded to Africa is the opportunity to leverage hidden strengths that have either been intentionally ignored or sadly forgotten. A great example of this, which is very relevant for the regions of the Middle East and Africa, is that of the oil and gas industry. The African continent is home to 5 of the top 30 oil-producing countries in the world. It accounted for more than 7.9 million barrels per day in 2019 alone, which is about 9.6% of world output. And for many years, the economies of countries like Nigeria, Algeria, and Angola have almost solely relied on the revenue generated by oil production. And yet, what we have seen in 2020 is how dangerous an almost one-product economy can be, as we have seen massive drops in the price of oil across the world, bringing with it challenging conditions for many countries and citizens of those countries. Such countries are then left with a choice. Do we continue to depend on just oil, or do we begin to explore other God-given natural resources that we have, such as immense natural human resources, or the arable land for agriculture? Indeed, I think of the recent story I heard of a fellow Nigerian who had a budding career in the oil and gas industry. This then led to a career as a decision maker in the telco world. However, at some point, faced with a personal tragedy that almost took his life, he and his family began a difficult yet critical journey of identifying hidden strengths and opportunities. Realizing the brevity of life and seeing clear needs for investments in agriculture, he pivoted toward this much needed and central sector in our region, and arguably across the world. Indeed, a disruption led to a focus on hidden personal and regional strengths. Not only is there the opportunity to pivot strategy and leverage hidden strengths, but I believe that thirdly, these disruptions of 2020 are providing Africans and African companies and companies around the world with the opportunity to collaborate in unexpected and unusual ways. Indeed, Africans have known this truth for ages, and this is reflected in much known proverbs such as, if you want to go fast, go alone. If you want to go far, go together. Indeed, this is a restatement of one of the wisest rulers in all of history, King Solomon, who said, "Two are better than one because they have a good reward for their toil." And we're already seeing some of these unusual collaborations happening, are we not? Recently, it was reported that MultiChoice is making the move to add Netflix and Amazon Prime as options for users of their platform. MultiChoice is recognized as Africa's leading entertainment company, reaching about 20 million people from about 50 countries. Rather than trying to compete against the growing worldwide tentacles of Netflix and Amazon Prime directly, they decide to pivot and collaborate to open up more options and more relevant and attractive ways that their customers, both current and new, could access information that they wanted. Indeed, not only are companies like MultiChoice having to wrestle with the need for collaboration, but all of us have seen this at a personal level in being forced to either implement anew or continue to implement work from home strategies in sometimes unconventional ways and industries to continue to function in the midst of disruption. Leveraging platforms and means of collaboration has truly become a reality for all of us. In conclusion, I want to focus on the following four numbers: 1984. Put together, that is 1984. For those literary experts among us, you might be thinking of the classic by George Orwell, which would be awesome, but not where I'm going. Rather, 1984 was the year that a relatively unknown rookie from the University of North Carolina entered the NBA. Based on the talent and skill he showed in college, this rookie joined the Chicago Bulls, a struggling team at the time, in hopes that he would help turn the program around and help them earn a championship. This rookie was Michael Jordan, whose basketball story with the Bulls was narrated in the recent Netflix documentary called The Last Dance. And though he had the skills, it took 7 years for him to earn the first of his 6 championships. It was a relatively long journey of preparation. And to get the 6 rings, especially the last 3, the Chicago Bulls organization had to go through periods of disruption in order to leverage MJ's hidden strengths. They had to build a collaborative team with seemingly disjointed entities like Rodman, Kukoc, and Longley. They had to, from time to time, pivot their strategy and leverage the three-point prowess of lesser-known players like Steve Kerr and Paxson to win key games. But you know what was one of the other underlying catalysts for the Bulls' success? It can be argued that it came on the back of the unexpected and disruptive deaths of both Steve Kerr's and Michael Jordan's fathers. In what I would argue is another example of the overall redemptive theme of history, 2020, extremely hard as it has been for the world, has given us all a potential gift. It is the opportunity to harness these disruptions and, just like the phoenix, rise from the ashes. As we pivot our strategy, we leverage our hidden strengths, and we collaborate in unexpected and unusual ways. Africa is prepared. Africa is ready. Now Africa must deliver.